This was actually one of those tournaments where I had my limit in like the first half hour. It was unreal.
I caught an 18 and 17 about 15 minutes in. I caught the 18 deep,
Hmm.
and then I saw one chasing bluegill, real shallow, cast it over there. 17. Of course, it got stuck on a limb. I just saw that 17 just dangling on the limb. I'm like, please don't snap. Yeah, that was stressful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Kayak Bass Connection Podcast. So this is the podcast where we explore the growing sport of kayak fishing. So this is a special Winner's Circle segment. We have coverage of the Southern Illinois Kayak Club's recent tournament at Banner Marsh State Fish and Wildlife Area, south and west of Peoria. So, and this is a very unique fishery. It's an old mining operation that was turned over to the state in the 1980s and then subsequently flooded, and it offers some extremely interesting topography. Literally, you'll be in 40, 50 feet of water 1 minute and just immediately in 3 feet of water. A lot of varied cover. Many species of fish, including a good population of largemouth. So we're going to have the 3 top finishers here with us during this podcast, and they really open up about how they broke down this body of water, what worked for them, what didn't work, and bring up some really emotional moments where they thought they had things in the bag and then things kind of fell apart. So it's a great episode. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get straight to the interviews. Hey, I'm real excited. We've got our 3 top finishers from last weekend's Banner Marsh tournament. So I'd like to welcome to the studio Susie Roloff, Dalton Williams, and Jonathan Kessler. Hey, thanks for taking time, everybody. This is great to have all 3 of you here tonight. I think I might need to rename this podcast the Kessler Winter Hour because this is the only second episode, and it's the second time that he's been at the top of the heap here for the winners. So just kind of recap, we had a real good tournament just this last weekend. Pretty darn warm, but it was a great tournament for everybody. Jonathan came in first, 97 inches. 97 inches, a great bag there. He's also currently the Angler of the Year now, leader for the Southern Illinois Kayak Club, which is awesome. Dalton came in second with 93, right behind him, 93 inches. And you're the current ranking Rookie of the Year, right? Last year, you were Rookie of the Year for the club?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
And then third, right behind everyone, was Susie Roloff with 91 inches. The crazy thing about that is I noticed that our tournament director, Josh Lincoln, pointed out you posted 90 inches before like 10 o'clock in the morning. Was that it? Or
Yes, probably close to 9 o'clock or so. I probably had about 90 inches.
Wow. Did you just sit back on the beach the rest of the day? That's incredible. But if I could, I'm just going to ask each one of you just to introduce yourself a little bit, tell them about where you're from and what kayak fishing means to you. Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I am Jonathan Kessler, and I reside down in southeast Missouri, but I really enjoy, and this is my 3rd year in SIKC, and I grew up in Southern Illinois, so I'm a little bit familiar with some of the lakes and stuff. So, but just glad to have the opportunity to get out on lakes and fish, to be honest.
Awesome. Dalton.
I live in Southern Illinois by Benton, Illinois. And kayak fishing is that's all I like to do now. It's my 2nd year. It's been an amazing experience so far.
All right. Fantastic. And Susie?
I've been kayak fishing since roughly 2014. I'm pretty heavily involved in the kayak fishing world. If some of you guys don't know me. So I've been with the Paddle and Fin podcast for, I think, like an official host anyway, per se, just over 4 years now. I've been involved with KBL, which is Kayak Bass League. I've helped SIKC out. I originally started with Great Lakes Kayak Fishing Series. I'm heavily involved with the Women's Fishing Federation. So that's kind of like how I'm involved in everything. But kayak fishing, it means the world to me. Obviously, I'm in my she shed, and it's nothing but fishing stuff in here too. I gave the guys a little bit of a tour, So
Yeah.
it's my escape. It's just it's my everything, and I love to share it with everybody too.
Fantastic. Well, I have to tell you, you're kind of a little celebrity, because you're really one of the reasons why I'm here. I mean, you probably don't know that, but you're one of the people that I saw talking and listening to some of your podcasts about kayak fishing that helped me start thinking, well, what exactly is this sport? And dug into it. So I have a thank you to deliver to you for thank you for being an inspiration for so many people through all the work that you've done to get the good word out, especially lady anglers, to bring those folks to the sport as well. So great. It's fantastic having you here.
Oh, thank you. And
you're welcome. But one of the things I like to do, first of all, is just kind of ask you to describe your tournament day. I'll kind of go back and start with Jonathan. Jonathan, how did your day unfold Saturday morning?
Well, I was maybe 15 minutes in, and I had a really good bite on my starting location, and I missed it about 15 foot from the boat. It looked like it was probably big jump and spit the lure. And I looked at that and was like, oh no, this is going to be a long day. When you lose like an 18 plus boat, you're like, oh, it's not going to happen again. You're watching your tournament fly out the into your line. But I got pretty lucky, and I found what felt like a pretty kind of sweet little honey hole kind of spot, and was stubborn enough to just sort of then stick it out about 6 hours there, and it worked out well. Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember, that's sort of we've heard this story before, right? You're we hear power fishermen that fly around the lake, testing every piece of water there, and you're real good at finding the water you like and staying, right?
Well, I think the bass do that this time of year, and I'll keep up with the pack. I think early and late, I'll do my best at least to keep up. But when mid-July hits and early August, I think you get the bass will do the moving for you a lot of times and move through the right areas. And if you find the right areas and you're stubborn and stick it out, you have good luck. And I think that's what I've been kind of experiencing the last couple of tournaments.
Now, what kind of areas do you look for? Do you look for the specific habitat, or are you just looking for prey, or what's some of the things you?
It's a combination of depth, structure, grass. But in this case, you're looking at a very unique situation with the strip pits, and what I kind of figured out, I like fishing deep, but when you hit about that 8 foot level and you go below that, it's just all rock. Now, a lot of times, if you're looking at deep rock, that's great. But in this particular case, because everything is just rock below about 8 feet, it felt like everything down there is just dead. It's not holding food, it's not holding structure, and it kind of felt like the bass were sticking 5 to 10 feet if you were on electronics. So I was just trying to match up that 5 to 10 foot range with a good place for them to feed. And the lake that I was fishing, there was just only a handful of spots, I think, that held all that type of detail. So you get one fish there, kind of gives you that feedback and says, yeah, you're on the right path. And then you just stick it out. You just stay there.
Okay. Dalton, what about yourself? How did your day unfold?
I caught an 18 and 17 about 15 minutes in. I caught the 18 deep, and then I saw one chasing bluegill, real shallow, cast it over there. 17. Of course, it got stuck on a limb. I just saw that 17 just dangling on the limb. I'm like, please don't snap. Yeah, that was stressful.
Did you get him over, or did you have to paddle over and grab him?
I finally got him over.
Yeah.
then he got into grass, and then I had to take a big chunk of grass just right behind him. Like, oh, good Lord, please don't come off now. But then about halfway through the day, I switched up lures. Then I found him probably about 15 feet deep on submerged grass. Then I stayed on that all day.
Outstanding. Susie, what's your day look like?
So my day when I first started, I had a particular spot that I usually go out to. Banner is only like a 20-minute drive for me, so I'm pretty familiar with most parts. Believe it or not, there are still some parts that I haven't touched at Banner just because I'm also stubborn in certain ways and refuse to go somewhere new when I know that fishing is so good in certain places. But this was actually one of those tournaments where I had my limit in like the first half hour. It was unreal. And so, I knew, I was like, okay, I got my limit. Now I just got to work on upgrading. And it wasn't too much of a struggle to say, nonetheless, which is kind of opposite of how my season has went so far this year, which has been a big struggle. So first thing is knowing Banner. I know that right before sunrise, they'll be feeding on shad, sometimes bluegill, right on top water. And I mean, like the spot I went back to, I could just see them chasing them up on top of the weeds and eating them. So I would skip out or just even like pitch a chatterbait, white chatterbait, into some of the pockets, and I wouldn't even be able to reel, and they would just be hitting it. And the first few fish I had were 16, 17. So I was like, all right, it's a good start. Definitely got to upgrade and whatnot. And there's kind of like this one area I stuck to for most of the morning, and then once the clouds moved away in the morning, which only lasted about an hour, I decided, all right, I'm going to start moving a little bit. And so I moved to a little bit different area of the lake, and then I started fishing a little bit combination of a darker chatterbait. So Banner's pretty notorious for liking black and blue colors. So I started kind of fishing for that a little bit. They weren't really kind of going for it as much as I would like. So then I changed it up to kind of like the combination between, I threw a swim jig for a little bit, got a couple off of those. And then I was skimming a black-blue space monkey. It's from Rage Craw. It's kind of got like little tendril things on it. And I would just skim that right across the top, right along the weed edges, and they were just going crazy over it. So found some more upgrades that way. And then I picked up a couple other ones off Wacky Rig, fishing the weed lines, kind of in that, kind of like where it kind of would start to drop off a little bit, probably in that 5 to 8 foot depth area. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I was going to add that, I think she had the 91 inches posted by about 10 o'clock. I had three fish, maybe 4 fish on the board, but one of them was a 13 by like noon. And I left that spot, and I'll be honest, I left it, and I was like, it's dead, it's dried up. I was there 2 hours without a bite. And I went through the Wacky Rig and the chatterbait and the swim jig and did all those same things and got nothing. And I was like, man, I'm going to finish this tournament. The first fish I caught was the second fish I caught. The first one at the spot I stayed at was the 21 1/4. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I just let it go sit back on that spot. And I went back there. It's about a 1/4 mile pedal, and I got those 2 fish. The first 3 fish came on about 7 casts there, and the second 2 came about 3 hours later after I had left to come back. So it was that night. Seeing that 91 total and going, like if I just end up finding 13 inches, this isn't going to go well for me. I need to go back there and find somewhere 20 inches.
Some motivation for you. Dalton, do you watch the leaderboard when you're fishing before you get a limit?
Sometimes I do, but as soon as I saw that 91, 93 inches, I'm like, I don't even want to look at it anymore. I saw that. I'm like, I looked, I had an 18 and 17 and a little 14. I'm like, man, my links look small right now. But
Now, Susie, you said something that was interesting. You talked about the fact that how unique Banner Marsh is, and there, the DNR's website said there's 200 bodies of water there. And there's only 3 ramps. There's 3 larger, I guess, bodies. But literally, I mean, when you look at it on satellite view, there's just pock marks everywhere. It kind of looks like maybe a kayaker's dream compared to a lot of lakes, that we fish. It's a very different system than I've fished anywhere else. So being a local person that spends a lot or spends time there, probably more than most folks, does that put any extra pressure on you when you sign up for one of these tournaments? Because everybody's looking at you, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Even the other clubs that I've fished in, like I have to like almost psych myself down because I'm just like, I got to get out of my head because I'm like, oh yeah, it's my home lake, no big deal, and then like all eyes are on me, I'll have people messaging me like, hey, what's Banner fishing like for this weekend, like, hey, were they biting when you were pre-fishing? I'm like, oh man, no pressure at all, whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
But I've still yet to take home a win at Banner Marsh. Believe it or not, that's the second time I've gotten 3rd place at Banner Marsh. Which granted, I'm not complaining by any means or anything like that, but yeah, it was definitely a fun time, and I was it was unexpectedly surprisingly awesome. Just just how things had played out, how quickly I got in the limit, and then how big of a limit and how quick I got it. There were actually moments when I was out on the water and I was just like, man, is it like 12 o'clock yet? And I'd look down, it'd be like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, oh man, because like I was starting to sweat because like I knew like there were some really talented anglers with SIKC, and other people who I know, like Brian Butters and Cody Winger and whatnot. I like Cody. I was really worried about because Cody knows fishing, and I know he was fishing somewhere in the same areas as Jonathan was. So like, and he hadn't uploaded anything like all day, and so like the leaderboard went dark at like 11 hours, and like after that, like I was just like, man, like I don't know. Like I didn't feel like I had it. I mean, there was parts of me who was just like, man, that would be cool if I won it. But I was like, I don't know. Like, I think somebody's going to come out of nowhere. Which is kind of what happened.
He's probably going to be in a new red Hobie. Right?
But yeah,
it's strange thing you say Cody, and him and I were the only 2 people. Like when I look at the satellite, not even like a map, contour map. When I see the satellite of that lake, I'm like, there's like 2 places I'm gonna fish here, and I talked with people, and man, it's gonna be busy, it's gonna be crowded there. Like it's too obvious. I go down there. The only person that's within 100 yards or 200, even in that part of the lake, is Cody. Believe it or not. And we're kind of on opposite sides, and he's probably 100 feet behind me when I catch the first 21 and the 19. I think he may be 200 yards behind or something like that. And he was like kind of fishing through the area, and he goes, oh, those look pretty good. How good were they? I was like 21 and a quarter. He's like, he's like, the disappointment on his face, like,
oh man. Yeah, that's one thing that was neat about Banner is that you're the wide areas are 50 yards wide. Most of the places there, so when somebody catches one, quarter mile down the draw, you can hear them because everything's right there on top of you. So did any of you make any adjustments? I mean, if you're used to fishing lakes, what kind of adjustments do you make for a body of water like Banner? Do you approach it like you do a lake, or do you think this is a completely different ball game? Because you'd be in 55 feet of water and then 12 feet of water and then immediately 4 feet of water, right?
Personally, I try to make it look like it's a normal lake. Like try to look
Mhm.
for spots that kind of play like that. But my experience with strip pits is limited to Banner now and Peabody. And
Okay.
what if there's one thing I've learned about strip pits, it's like look for what's unique, I guess. Like there'll be things that just look so appetizing and draw you in, and they'll be all over, right? Like I, I heard people in the fall whenever they were up there for the crossroads last year talk about lily pads, and there's lily pads everywhere. I think on Johnson and a couple of the lakes, and I think there's even some back on Shovel. Um, if there's a lot of it, I tend to go, okay, let me find something that's a little bit more unique. And if you go to Peabody, it's like if you go down that main drag on Peabody on is it Beaver? I can't remember the name of the lake, but the main lake there, it's just like there's like some reeds for like 100 yards, and then it's like a mile of wood, just like great wood cover, brush piles, and all this
Mhm.
stuff, and there's not a bass in any of it. Like you can fish it 1,000 times. I've never pulled a bass out of any of it. Um, but it just like looks so good, like it looks beautiful. So I always try to look for
Mhm.
something a little bit different whenever it does.
Okay.
I start out by analyzing it like a normal lake, and then usually end up finding it's just something a little bit different.
All right. Interesting. Dalton, what were you looking for out there whenever did you have an idea where you were going the minute that you started Saturday morning? Or what was your experience like there? Is it the first time or what?
I was on Crossroads team last year,
Oh,
and
okay.
I found him in a lake. I ain't gonna mention what lake, but
Sure.
I found him in a particular lake, and it's also
Hmm.
like in a side area.
Hmm.
And I found him, like I found the bass probably about an hour or two before the tournament ended. And so I'm like, all right, I already know my game plan. I know where they are. I know what they're hitting.
Yeah.
Just I hope that they're going to be the exact same next year.
Yeah.
And as I thought, they're the exact same thing. I just had to switch
Fantastic.
lures, but that was it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now, did anybody start doubting their choice of lures or areas at some point during the day? How do you deal with that? I mean, do you say, you know what, haven't caught anything doing this for? Do you have a set time like 30 minutes, no bites, changing something? I've heard of people starting a timer on their phone, and if they haven't had any bites or haven't caught any fish, something's got to change. Do you have anybody have any rules like that they follow?
Well, like I kind of said it earlier. That's kind of what I did. Is
Mm,
I got I think I got a small one, and then I think I got three
mm,
off this one spot. When I say one spot, I mean it's literally I think every bite was within 5 yards of each other. And then I was
mm,
there, I think almost an hour and a half in no bites. But I was so confident in the area, I didn't leave. Normally I would say an hour maybe. I stayed maybe an
mm,
hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
mm,
Left, literally tried everything else because your electronics could kind of tell you. In my mind, it seemed like they were kind of suspended and chasing things. And so I started throwing the moving stuff and the falling, like the slow fall stuff, the wacky rig and the swim jig and the
mm.
chatterbait, and I could not buy a bite on any of those things, and eventually just said, you know what, like I'm gonna go right back to what I was doing in the morning, and the bite's gonna pick back up. Like it's gonna come back. Um, and so and every fish I caught was on a green pumpkin jig, so it's just like go back to the jig, do what you're
Yeah.
doing, let it soak. Yeah.
Yeah. I had an interesting experience. I fished this tournament and I didn't do nearly as well as these folks did, but I was throwing a jackhammer, a small jackhammer, and I cast and I reeled and I had a little bit of a bird's nest, and I reeled some of it in, and I had about 8 feet of line hanging over the boat, and I'm pulling out my bird's nest, and all of a sudden my line takes off. And I'm like, hey, I think I should be throwing a jackhammer. So I've not caught the next couple of fish on that, so it worked out well. Um, One thing we haven't talked about before is your choice of equipment. As far as boats, do you have any specific? I know that I just alluded that Jonathan is in a brand new boat, broke that thing in well. Tell her, what did you buy?
I fish
Yeah.
out of Hobie,
Okay.
and I originally had a PA 12 360, and I'm a bigger guy at 6'2", 250, and I was like, you know what, I could probably. At first, it was like, is a 14 good for some of our lakes? And then when you see how maneuverable the 360 drive is in the Hobie, you're like, yeah, the size of the kayak's not going to matter when you can turn on a dime and make lefts and rights and stuff like that with a 360 drive. So I upgraded to the PA 14, and I really like the red. So, and I'm a big fan of Ike and Ellie. So, with the Ike editions. So,
awesome. Dalton, what about yourself?
I have a Shearwater Vibe. It's
Nice.
a Shearwater 126 or 12 or 126. It's 12'6", and I like it because it's black, so it kind of, I don't know, it kind of blends in, but also I think it kind of hurts the fishing because the bass can look up and see that black, and they think it's like a shadow, and I don't know, like kind of regret choosing that color, but I haven't really seen a difference yet. Like this last tournament, I got second with 93 inches. So I was casting far though, so
yeah. Well, I can't argue with your results though. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was kind of like. It's like it's black, but it got me fish. So
and that, the visibility of that lake was pretty clear. I mean, it was at the ramp, it was scary visibility, and then it muddied up farther you got away. But Susie, what about yourself? What are you fishing out of now?
I'm in a Hobie 360 12 foot. I've been in a 14 a couple of times, and just for my style, my preference, I originally started in an Outback, which is a 12 foot, and then I kind of went to like a PA 14 right away, and it just didn't feel right. Like it felt like a lot of boat. I mean, a 14 is a lot of boat. And so then I was like, I'm gonna just try, the 12. And I've been stuck with the 12 360 now for a couple of years now, and I absolutely love it. Again, kind of like what Jonathan was saying, like that 360 drive, being able to maneuver any direction you want is like critical for just about anywhere. I mean, if the wind kicks up a little bit and you just need to adjust just a little bit, that's one of the greatest things I love about that. And the newest addition I got for myself this year was I had gotten a Newport motor, so that way I could kind of get to my spots quickly and whatnot. And great thing about that too is, like, I did every form of like manpower and electric power at Banner, because like there were times where I had to pull the drive up and then I'd had to paddle, because there were some spots in order to get to that I'd have to paddle over lily pads and thick weeds and stuff like that. So I would paddle and then pedal and then motor. So I kind of did it all last weekend. So
yeah, I found myself pulling my motor up quite a bit at Banner and paddling. A lot of grass.
Oh yeah.
I give a lot of credit to the 360. We had after Banner, a lot of the sick guys we have a little small group chat. We were kind of chatting back and forth about jig fish in particular. And I swear that the reason people don't like jigs is because they just I think they miss bites. I think they don't feel the bites, and they part of that is being steady on the fall, keeping a nice tight line on the fall without too tight. So you let it fall vertically, but try to keep it so you can feel it all the way down. I think you get a lot of bites in the drop. And I think the 360 drive, just like being able to like tap yourself back into position, allows you to keep your cast, keep everything steady. It's weird, but like when you're, I fish a jig almost like it's a finesse bait. People might call me stupid or something for saying that, but for me, a jig is like a finesse kind of thing, even a half-ounce jig. And I need to be steady to make sure that I can feel the bite. Any little drift or movement or whatever can really make an impact. And is that a rock? Is that a grass? Or is that a bite? And kind of with that 360 drive, just if the wind's blowing this way, just push it back a little bit the other way. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like it makes sense.
So how do you decide which direction the thrust is? Is that just a knob on the side of the kayak, or what is it?
Yeah, You got a steering knob. It goes 360 degrees. The drive goes 360 degrees, spins in a circle, and then it completely vectorizes the thrust, and you can kind of go left, right, forward, back, in any direction. So it's got a little arrow on it, tells you which way it's pointing. So you just give it a couple pedals, push you
As
right
long
back
as you
into
put your
place.
drive in with the arrow facing the right way. Or, you have the longer point of the knob facing the right way, because I've totally done it like reverse before, and I'm like, why does this feel weird? I'm like, oh, I didn't adjust my knob accordingly before putting my drive in. So, but that's a nice thing too, though. It's just you can pull it out real quick, adjust how you need to, and then plop it right back in.
Absolutely. So that brings up, experience. Experience with equipment's important. Experience with your boat is really important. Now, I'm going to direct this toward Dalton. So, Dalton, you've said you've only been kayak fishing really a couple of years. So, if someone is watching this podcast and thinking about getting into kayak fishing, what kind of advice would you give someone that's just thinking about, man, maybe I want to give this a try, get off the bank, or even try it in addition to the boat?
Start small. Start with a smaller boat. Start cheaper. Start in a smaller lake or a pond. Get a feel for it. And then once you get that feel for it, try it out for like about 6 months to a year. Just kayak fish. Then once you think you got a hang of it, just join like a tournament or two. See how like the water is with the tournaments. Like I was worried about joining Southern Illinois Kayak Club because I was the first generation in my family to join it. And I knew nobody. But as soon as I got there, the director was very nice, all that. All the members there were very accepting. They taught me new tricks on kayak fishing and all this. They were all there to help me out. And that's one thing why I kind of stayed.
Okay. Awesome. We've certainly enjoyed having you. I'll go to Susie next. I'll kind of ask you the same question, Susie. You've got a tremendous amount of experience in seeing new people and a very experienced people. What kind of advice would you throw out there for someone wanting to get into the sport?
I'm gonna kind of piggyback a little bit with Dalton too. Don't go crazy overboard in the deep end and think you have to have the Cadillac of kayaks and a motor and a 10-inch touch screen electronics and whatnot. Start small. Start learning just how to fish. Like learn your equipment, learn your techniques, learn the bodies of water, but more importantly, never take safety for granted. That would be like my first and most important thing. I've experienced a lot of things in my years, with kayak fishing, one of them being the death of an angler, unfortunately. But, if you come from an outside world of not experiencing kayak fishing or anything, and you think that, the PFD rule is a silly rule, well, it's not. Always wear your PFD every single time. Always have a backup plan. Try not to go fishing alone. I say that, and I fish alone all the time. However, I do always have like a backup plan that I've set up with my husband. We have Life 360 set up on our phones, so he can always look up to see where I'm at. I've established, hey, if you don't hear from me by this time, text me, call me, see if I answer. If not, come looking for me, send help, etc. type of thing. So safety is always important. When it comes to this, especially fishing in the spring and the fall. Considering the 120 rule. Regardless of what the air temperature might be, it might be 80 degrees out, but if you're in 60-degree water, you can still succumb to hypothermia pretty quickly. But
absolutely.
Also kind of the serious talk. Kind of like what Dalton was saying. Start small. Don't get too over in your head, and like we said with Dalton, join a club and Paddle and Fin. We do online tournaments called the Noobs Tournament. And so this is kind of where new, inexperienced kayak anglers anywhere in the nation can go online. It's $10 per tournament for the whole month. And they can just go out, fish public body of water, and just, kind of get their feet wet. They can
Fantastic.
learn how to, get fish submitted. Our rules are pretty lenient compared to, the bigger leagues and stuff like that. But we do that for a reason because, we want it to be like a learning environment. We want to help them get familiar with using, like Tourney X, which is one of the most widely used app for uploading fish. I know there's Fishing Chaos as well. But yeah, and then once you join a club or even just like message anybody that runs a club, you're going to be welcomed with open arms. I can tell you that right now. Like all these clubs, SIKC, like it's an awesome community.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things that we do for each other and for other people, it's amazing. Like you'll never want to go back to what you were doing before.
Great words from a person with a lot of great experience. As a matter of fact, I know that you helped a fellow kayaker out, you and some other folks just right before this tournament. And I have him coming on the show Sunday night to talk about that.
Oh.
So we're going to meet Sunday night to talk about it. But that's the thing is that one of the things that's so great that I've seen as a relative newcomer to this sport, fishing's fun. I like, getting kayak close down on the water. But what truly makes it great is the people, in the sport. So, I appreciate your words about safety first. I mean, if you don't come back, nobody's having a good time, right? So
Exactly.
make sure you take care of safety first and then enjoy everything else. So Jonathan, I know, you've got quite a bit of experience, been a great tournament angler. What would you suggest for a new person? I know that you've already kind of answered this question on the previous episode, but I'm sure you've got something else.
Well, I was just thinking to add something. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in SIK is sitting down and going, hey, we see a lot of guys come in, the last couple of years, new guys, rookies, and then I think they do a couple tournaments. It's tough. It's competitive. Like there's our single day tournaments have some of the best anglers in Illinois, boat or kayak, in my opinion. And it's really competitive, and that can be discouraging, right? And so there's a lot of things out there. I think if you like Dalton kind of said, hey, talk to people and introduce yourself. People help out. It's not we talked a little bit about gear in the past. One of the people that's right up in the top 5 in SIK right now has fished with a paddle kayak all season, right? Yep. And Dalton won Rookie of the Year last year with the paddle kayak. Mm-hmm. But focusing on those kind of fundamentals and having several different types or styles of fishing, whether it's, and getting comfortable with those first would be really helpful in terms of being competitive early, right? So having something that's sort of more finessey, so having, and then having to go to when they're hitting moving baits and being able to just have a little bit of diversity when you first start will probably help in that competitiveness. And I think that might prevent a little bit of burnout because we see a lot of new guys come in and then they do a couple tournaments and then we may not see them again for a while. And we spend a lot of time talking about with some of the core guys, just sitting down going, hey, how do we prevent the burnout? Is there like some additional incentives that we can do? Can we run some side pods? Like what are some things that we can sort of do to try to, keep people interested, because there is kind of a learning curve, right? You're not going to come in and win. It is a really competitive, some competitive groups. So, it's one of the things I say, just stick it out and try to get confidence in a diverse set of floors.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I can attest to exactly what you said because I went through that. Still am a little bit. I mean, when you even the Susie when she got that at 90 inches in the bag, the first 2 hours of the tournament, you're thinking, I got it. This is good. And this is such a competitive field. It's like, no, not necessarily. You're going to end up on the top spot. Just a few inches can make a difference during the day. But I went through that. It's like the tournaments I would have that I thought, hey, I got my 5. They're decent fish. And I'd check out that leaderboard and I'd be like, I'm not even in the top 10. Not even close. But, you just can't get frustrated. And you got to realize that's an opportunity to learn. And that's – go ahead.
I was going to say, this was my strategy. And I'm not new to fishing, but I'm definitely new to fishing kind of public waters from a boat or kayak. But, my first year was literally I was just having fun. And I can afford that. I wasn't there to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But the second year I said, my goal is to get 5 fish in every tournament. It's not to win. It's not to have the biggest fish. I just want to limit in every tournament. And if you look at the statistics, like if you limit, that usually puts you in the top of the field, right? There's no shame in not getting a limit. Like a limit is 40th percentile or better, right? Like statistically. So I went in last year and I just said, hey, every lake that we fish, my goal is to learn it well enough to catch 5 fish. That's all it is in one day, in an 8-hour window. And then the next year it was, well, now I want to get 80 inches, have an 80-inch minimum, maybe, 83-inch minimum or something like that. And then just, try to figure out ways on how to find slightly bigger fish. And you just, if you take those kinds of steps to just become slightly better angler, I think that provides a path and gives you something to shoot for. Because if you come in and you're like, my goal is to win $600 in every tournament. Good luck.
Yeah, have fun with that.
It's tough, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're coming up on the 40-minute mark, and I promise you guys I wouldn't keep you all that long. Do any of you have any shout outs you want to mention? Any sponsors or anything that you'd like for the rest of the community to be aware of? Hey, that's all right. That's good.
Susie's probably the one with the sponsors.
Yeah.
I will say I recently joined the Kessler team, and I've been a big fan of Kessler rods for a long time.
Awesome.
I've been fishing with them for about 2 years, and if you haven't heard of them, they're maybe not one of the biggest names out there, but they make an incredible product, and usually you can get it at a pretty good price. So
nice. Now, where are those made at?
So they do get most of their blanks. I think they ship in, but they're handcrafted, and all the work is done here in the United States to get them
down in Texas.
Yep,
in Texas.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to thank you, all 3 of you, again. Congratulations on a great event last Saturday, and just knowing the 3 of you in your past, I have a feeling I'll be bugging you again for an interview. All 3 of you are always up there on the top.
Bug me anytime you want.
Okay, as long as there's a check attached that you can hold up for a picture, that'd be nice. Thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight, and good fishing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.